Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Azahar, and it appears that Azahar is making quite a bit of progress. So here's what Pablo MK7, one of the main developers, says. Update on Azahar development. It's now possible to perform a system update within the System Settings app, which sets up all the system titles and archives. So in the video he's posted, here's the before and then the update happens, and well, here's the after, and you can see it's a whole lot different. In my opinion, this is a pretty huge advancement for Azahar. Now, there are a few things worth pointing out. First and foremost, I've been called out a few times by pronouncing it Azahar instead of Azahar. I know my pronunciation is not the strongest, but at the same time here, they say it's pronounced Azahar and not Azahar. Secondly, for those who may not be aware, Azahar is a fork of Citra. It's a merging of Lime 3DS and Pablo MK7's fork of Citra. The developers have come together here to try to make something even better. And lastly, there is no release of Azahar just yet. This one is in development. The developers appear to be working pretty hard on this one, but they haven't released anything yet. And continuing to talk about 3DS emulation and also releases, next up here we're talking about Tanuki 3DS. For those who may not be aware, Tanuki 3DS is a new HLE 3DS emulator written in C which aims to be simple, fast, and compatible. Currently, it can play a handful of games at full speed and supports some nice features, like controller support and video upscaling. And Tanuki 3DS just got a brand new update. So this new update for Tanuki 3DS is actually their very first release. This emulator is super fresh. Version 0.1.0 is their first release. It's available for Linux and Mac here, and I don't see Windows or Android. It is 100% open source though. Now, from my understanding, Tanuki 3DS is not a fork of Citra. It is its own thing here. If you are curious about this one and wanted to learn more about it, again, like everything I talk about, link will be in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. Next up, we're talking about 8BitDo, or 8BitDo, or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or however you want to pronounce it. Anyways, 8BitDo is releasing a brand new keyboard here themed after the Sega Saturn. They say in celebration of Saturn's 30th anniversary, we proudly introduce the 8BitDo Retro Mechanical Keyboard, S Edition. Only 1,994 units available worldwide. Each with a unique silkscreen serial number, comes with a collection certificate, extra keycaps, a limited edition wrist rest, and a keycap puller. According to the 8BitDo website here, it will ship on December 20th and it is priced at $110. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Would a Sega Saturn themed keyboard be of interest to you? I'm still waiting on the SNES themes here, and I'm crossing my fingers and hoping they will release them. And speaking about releases, next up here we're still talking about 8BitDo. So they say here, Retro Green Future Ready. Mark your calendar, 8 a.m. PST, November 28th. Light up your horizon. Stay tuned. I don't know what this is. I've got a very good idea of what it might be though, but I can't speak about it until it's released. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. What do you think it might be? And speaking about upcoming stuff, next up here we're talking about 10.0 and Black Friday, and 10.0 has given me the heads up here that they will be having a Black Friday sale. For those who may not be aware, 10.0 is heavily involved in the fighting game community. I mean, they've hosted tournaments, they do a whole bunch of streaming, and they even have merchandise. And the merchandise appears to be going on a pretty big sale for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. According to them, they sent me this as a heads up here. It's going to be 20% off a minimum of $100 order or 30% off of a minimum of $150 order. Now, for full transparency, this is not an advertisement. I'm not getting paid. I'm not making a dime from this. I'm just a big fan of the fighting game community. I'm a big fan of fighting games and fighting game stuff. I've been to a bunch of tournaments. I've competed in a bunch. And this is right up my alley in terms of things I may be interested in. I mean, right now, to be honest with you, I'm eyeballing the King of Fighters Wingstar shirt. This one looks pretty cool. Anyways, here, the link will be in the description below if you want to take a look. If not, that's okay too. Next up, we're talking about the Nintendo Switch eShop in China, and it appears that Nintendo Switch eShop and online services are ending in China in 2026. Nintendo has a recent announcement about it. So according to the note, on March 31st, 2026, the Chinese Nintendo eShop will restrict purchasing. And a month and a half later, on May 15th, 2026, players will no longer be able to download titles, redeem codes, or pick up DLC. Now, as a silver lining here, I don't know how silver this is, but anyways, between November 27th, 2024 and March 31st, 2026, players who own a Chinese Nintendo Switch that has an active WeChat account will get 4 games for free here. And there's some heavy hitters: New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Super Mario Bros. Odyssey, Mario Kart 8, Mario Party, Yoshi's Crafted World, and, well, even more. Unfortunately, I don't have the full picture as to why exactly they're doing this. There's a whole lot of speculation out there, and a lot of people are wondering if they're shutting down the Switch stuff, what's going to happen with the Switch 2 in China? We're going to have to wait and see on this one moving forward. I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there that it has to do with Chinese government and regulations. Really, who knows at this point? And I'm also wondering about physical games and, well, how that's going to continue. Are physical games still going to be sold, and is it just the online portion and eShop and all of that stuff that's been closed down? We'll have to wait and see on this one to see if more details emerge and we get a full picture of exactly what's going on. And speaking about stuff going away, next up we're talking about 2K, and I would say this is a much more positive announcement. So 2K has announced that they are sunsetting their launcher. Yes, the launcher is going away. So this is right from the 2K website. If you already have 2K games installed, you've probably already noticed it. So they say here, as of November 18th, 2024, the 2K launcher has been removed from every game that used it on Epic and Steam. Additionally, we also removed the 2K launcher beta, a completely separate launcher from Sid Meier's Civilization 5. On November 25th, a follow-up update was sent out via Steam to make sure the 2K launcher was fully removed. You may notice the 2K launcher folder was replaced with a text file called 2K launcher removed text. This file isn't needed, so you can safely delete it. It is worth noting here that there seems to be a few differences for a few different games. For example, BioShock Remastered, BioShock 2 Remastered, BioShock Infinite, The Quarry, and Marvel's Midnight Suns will now launch directly into the game as soon as you click play. The Mafia Trilogy Definitive Edition games on Steam and the Mafia Trilogy Definitive Edition games on Epic will have slightly different paths to getting into the games. For example, here on Steam, they say the default option to play will directly launch the game, but there is a secondary option to open the game's original launcher if you want. There appear to be some nuances for Civ 6 and Civ 5. XCOM 2, for example, has mods, so they do have some nuances there. I think they've got like 4 different launcher options. So it is worth checking out if you do have some 2K games, especially if you are using mods. Next up, we're talking about Playtron OS, and Playtron OS just got a brand new update. Now, for those who may not be aware, Playtron OS is a Linux operating system. It's based on Fedora, and it's designed for gaming. It's designed to be a competitor to something like SteamOS. So in this update, they've added some new hardware support, NVIDIA support for dual GPU systems such as desktops and laptops, OS upgrade from Fedora 40 to Fedora 41. They've added support for portal-based Wi-Fi connections and even more. I mean, there's now full cloud save support with conflict resolution for the Epic Games Store and GOG. There's also full support for mouse and keyboard input, new sound effects, and even more, and they tested it with a whole bunch of different devices: Neo 2, ROG Ally, Legion Go, and Steam Deck. Now, there is a known issue, and unfortunately, it's with my Steam Deck. They say the Steam Deck LCD 64GB model is not currently supported. If you are interested in Playtron, I do recommend checking out the known issues before installing it on your device. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from using it. I'm just saying here, there are some known issues. This is an alpha, so expect some things not to work. At the same time here, I think this is pretty exciting to have yet another Linux operating system that is based around gaming. And speaking about Linux and gaming and Steam, next up here we're talking about Proton Experimental, and Proton Experimental just got a brand new update on November 25th. This one adds in some more game compatibility and a whole bunch of fixes here. So Disgaea 4 Complete Plus and Soul Interface are now compatible. There may still be some bugs there, I don't know yet, I haven't tested these ones out. But at the same time, they have fixed a bunch of bugs for a bunch of different games. For example, they fixed Shadow Warrior crashing with AMD GPUs. On top of that, they fixed some regressions in Fall Guys, The Elder Scrolls, and Fallout, and Resident Evil 7 and Village. And there's also some Final Fantasy fixes. Now, I usually use Proton Experimental in general on my Steam Deck, on my Linux laptop, basically anywhere where I'm using Steam and Linux. I find I get the best experience here. But at the same time, Proton Experimental is experimental. So sometimes there are regressions and things that were working before have some minor issues. And that being said, it's still worth checking out the experimental, at least in my opinion. And speaking about experimental, next up we're talking about, I would say, an experimental handheld that, well, the monitor looks pretty cool on it. Anyways, this person built an ultra-wide DS, a DIY Steam Deck thingy. I do recommend checking out this video. It is super interesting. If I'm not mistaken, it's built out of an old Lenovo Yoga laptop. There's 16 gigs of RAM. The only mistake, well, it's not necessarily a mistake. I would say the only thing I'm not the biggest fan of is the fact that they do run Windows on it. I think if they ran Linux, they may get some additional performance out of some games here. But at the same time, they're going to be expanding this one and trying even more stuff moving forward. Overall, I'm a big fan of the screen on this one. It does seem pretty interesting and, well, it does seem pretty ideal for, I think, certain games. And I could be wrong about the whole Linux thing. I don't know. Maybe the overhead for Windows on this isn't too bad at all and it doesn't slow down a whole lot. I'm assuming you probably wouldn't notice a whole lot for indie games, but maybe some AAA games would cause issue. Again, who knows here? I'm very curious on how he expands this one moving forward. It's a very interesting project. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. To be honest with you, I think this turned out a lot better than I would have expected. The form factor is, well, it's interesting. I wouldn't have minded a screen a little bit taller, but at the same time, I'm not going to nitpick here. This is just fantastic. This looks a lot better than I would have initially thought. I think this is a super cool project. It was based off of a broken laptop that you could have just thrown away instead. And I'm a big fan of innovation like this. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Well, we got some little fluffs floating around there in the lake, some geese. But not the legendary one fluff. Again, she is upstairs underneath that Christmas tree camped out there. She frickin' loves it. She doesn't want to move. She sits there almost all day. So maybe I'll include a video of her in the outro and there you go. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.